Penguin Random House Audio presents Rich Girl Nation, taking charge of our financial futures. This is the author, Gatti Tassin. Note to listeners, this program contains a downloadable bonus PDF of key visuals from the book. To the anonymous guy who, quote, works in finance that used to relentlessly comment on my nascent website in 2018, urging me to quit writing about money and, quote, keep it to myself, I hope you're well. Introduction. The Invitation. A third tray of cubed cheese circulated past me. I reached over to add a hunk of white cheddar to an already crowded plate, intent on maximizing my free food consumption. Pinching a glass of red wine between my right forefinger and thumb and using the remaining 3 fingers to maintain a precarious grip on my cracked iPhone 6S, I glanced around the room vibrating wall to wall with women. Despite my awkward cocktail party, nowhere to set things down dance, I felt oddly at ease in this crowd. Normally, I hated the milling and shouty small talk that accompanied networking-style functions, but something about this evening, the Dallas stop on the Refinery 29 Money Diaries book tour, was different, even a little subversive. It was like the women around me were bringing all the energy and accoutrement you might expect to find at BravoCon to the boys' club world of finance. So far, this personal finance-centric event seemed like everything I thought money wasn't. Fun, spirited, and for me. At 22, I hadn't yet seriously considered my finances, beyond a vague desire to get rich enough to convincingly wear red-bottomed shoes to work. But my scrappy friend Kylie had insisted I join her that night. Up until that point, I was mostly met with sympathetic nods or blank stares anytime I broached the subject of money with friends. This was especially true for those who still used credit cards tied to their parents' checking accounts. But Kylie and I shared a mutual interest in making sure our credit reports weren't torched by our new matching Discover cards. She was the type of friend to whom you could bring just about anything and be met with unbridled enthusiasm. She was creative and unpredictable, someone who would tell you she tried a party drug at an underground disco in the same breath that she mentioned she was halfway through an online MBA program she was paying for herself with money she earned freelancing for ESPN. At the time, I was making $52,000 and doing a decent job of shuffling a little extra into savings each month. Otherwise, I felt financially rudderless. My excitement about becoming a high-powered career woman and stomping around boardrooms in tasteful patent leather heels evaporated almost immediately upon being lulled into the monotonous rhythm of an endless expanse of 40-hour work weeks. I was thrilled to be able to pay my bills, but the entire arrangement felt inescapably claustrophobic. By the time I walked through the doors of the Money Diaries event, I had a suspicion that there was something about savvy money management that could be transformational in paving my path out of dependence on a paycheck, but I didn't know much beyond that. Fortunately, Kylie managed to get me out of the house on a school night in fall 2018, usurping my usual post-work routine of melting into my bed and scrolling Facebook. Like I said, it was 2018. When it was time to take our seats for the guests of honor, 2 women found their way on stage. The backdrop, decor, and accents in the venue looked as though they had materialized directly from the Instagram Explore page, dripping in the precise trendiness that only a millennial media company could conjure on short notice. The younger woman's name was Lindsay Stanberry, the work and money director at Refinery 29 and author of Money Diaries. And the older woman's name was Manisha Thakur, the VP of Financial Wellbeing at Brighton Jones, a prominent wealth management firm that even I, in my ignorance, had heard of. It was clear that Lindsay was intended to be the bridge between the audience, a group of predominantly young women, and Manisha, who was an established financier with an intimidating pedigree. At every turn, Lindsay would offer a personal touch that made someone in the audience feel better. She was paying off student loans, had a child, and was still able to buy a home, she'd reassure, inadvertently highlighting how absurd it is that the presence of one thereby makes the other two achievements seem unrealistic. They shared intensely personal money origin stories, like the salacious details of Manisha's divorce proceedings, in which her ex-husband's mistress sent her a greatest hits compilation of their amorous email correspondence. Her takeaway? Get a prenup. Having been in several pre-professional organizations in college, I was accustomed to forcing myself to pay attention to the subject matter at any given panel. My similarly ambitious classmates would seem genuinely riveted by speakers about crisis communication and earned media impressions, and I was mostly feigning interest given the more earnest preoccupations of my early 20s, read boys and parties. But that night, I was on the edge of my seat. I didn't have to pretend to listen. I was captivated by the two women on stage before me, knowledgeable and independent, rattling off the names of investment accounts and strategies with an ease and assuredness that mesmerized me. Manisha spoke with such fluidity and confidence that it made me wish for the first time ever that I had studied finance in school. The presence of Lindsay, our 20-something translator, seemed to implicitly suggest that we too could become our own personal money managers. At the end, they announced they'd be taking questions from the audience, and I was certain that a brief, awkward Q&A would be the stopping point for the evening. I was wrong. Hand after hand flew into the air. Here, in this room of hundreds of strangers, women asked questions that self-evidently revealed intimate financial details. Amazed, I listened to questions with implications that reached far beyond the interest rate in a savings account. These were career-shaping, relationship-changing, and life-altering scenarios filtered through the lens of money. And here we were, a millennial pink town hall bearing the souls of our asset allocations to the congregation and asking for guidance. I'm in a lot of credit card debt, and I don't know how to break this cycle, but I hate my job and feel stuck. Should I be contributing to my 401k or trying to build an emergency fund so I can start my own business? My boyfriend and I want to buy a home, but I have a lot of debt and he doesn't know. Whenever an audience member would ask a question on the simpler end of the spectrum that I knew the answer to, I had to physically restrain myself from interjecting. I didn't know other young women had these questions, let alone felt encumbered enough by them to attend a book tour on a Tuesday evening and ask strangers for help in front of a crowd. I learned more about personal finance in those 2 hours than I had in the previous 22 years of my life. It cost $15, and there was free wine, which at that age would have lured me to a cookout where they were grilling women named Katie. Being surrounded by women talking about financial security felt like coming home to a place I had never been before. As the event ended, there were two things I couldn't ignore. A newfound conviction that if you want options in this life, you need to understand money, and that I felt a visceral, pure attraction to the subject. That was fun, Kylie chirped as we emerged from the air conditioning into the warm Texas evening and crossed the street to our cars. She had launched into an out-loud pros and cons list of different options for a new investment account. As I listened to her, my friend in white go-go boots and elaborate feathered earrings discussing the intricacies of a Roth IRA, I was surprised that these two things could go together. Then surprised at my surprise. Why did this scene feel so foreign to me? Why was this the first time I was having a conversation like this one? As I drove home, the high of the night faded into a strange sadness. I didn't want to stop talking so openly about money, especially now that I could see other young women had the same burning questions and willingness to discuss them that I did. For
Sample complete. Ready to continue?